Hey everybody, welcome back. And I'm sorry if this is a little bit shaky. I'm doing this by just holding the camera. This is a little design I just drew up for an embroidered piece that's going to become kind of like a quilt square. So the outside square is 6 by 6 and the inside's a little bit smaller. That gives me enough room for a border there. Very simple little design. A joyful heart is good medicine. And so I did heart shapes with leaves on a vine, kind of like the hearts or the flowers. And then I've got my name down at the bottom. This is going to be embroidered in a variety of colors onto a plain white fabric. Now what I did is I sketched this out with pencil, and then I went over my pencil lines with a marker, a fine line marker, so it'd be good and dark. Then I used the light box that my mom gave me. That lights it from below, and I put the fabric over top of it. And then I was able to just trace over it with pencil onto my piece of fabric. This is a pretty tight weave off-white cotton fabric, and I've put it in my embroidery hoop. Oh, let me show you this in case you've not done a lot of embroidery. If you're using a hoop and you want it to stay good and tight, because sometimes they don't, they slip, what you can do is wrap your inside hoop with a thin cotton fabric, and then just do like I did. It's kind of a cross stitch. I hope you can see that. Kind of a cross stitch all along the inside edge. There's actually, in the center there, is the ending and beginning, and you just kind of cross stitch over it to where it's not going to come loose. What this does is it gives the fabric that you want to embroider a kind of a sticky surface. I'm sorry, I keep moving that camera out of the way. It gives the fabric that you're working on a sticky surface. It grips it better, so that your plastic or wooden embroidery hoop will stay in place. Now, I'm not saying it won't come out, and you won't have to readjust it and fix it nice and taut again, but it will help. Well, welcome back. I'm going to give you a little bit of a update on this little project here for embroidery, and give you a few tips as well. Number one, when you're taking embroidery thread, which comes in wrapped with 6 pieces in each strand, what I do is I take and twist the end of it, and I've already cut off a piece the length I want. Twist the end to separate those strands, and you take one, separate it, hold it in your fingers, and slowly, don't do it too fast, pull it out. Now, if you want to do 2 strands, and most people embroider with 2 strands, you can pull out a second one and do the exact same thing, and then put them together. That way, they won't knot up, and they won't make a mess. And you won't get one that's longer than the other, and you're having to rearrange it, reset it as you're trying to embroider something. And you can just take and put that away. In this particular case, what I'm going to do is just double this one. So I'm going to take the end, wet it with my tongue a little bit, and then I pull it between my fingers. I don't know if you can see this. That's how my grandmother taught me to do this. Pull it in your fingers till you can barely see the end of it. Then take the eye of your needle and squeeze down over top of it. And I kind of seesaw it back and forth. And then you can catch it, the end that sticks out, with your thumbnail, and pull it through. And I'm going to get both ends about the same length, straighten them out. Run your fingers over it a couple times to straighten that out. If you have any big kinks, you can wet your fingers and go down it. But you don't want it too wet if you're going to be working with it right away. So, sorry about that, I hit the camera tripod. Okay, now, in most cases, and I'll say right now, I'm a messy stitcher. The back of mine is not going to look as gorgeous as the front. Never has, never will. I'm not a perfectionist. Close enough is good enough, because the only one perfect that was ever on this earth was Jesus. So, that being said, I don't like to do a whole lot of knots if I can help it. So what I'll do is I'll know where I want to start, and I'll find usually I have to start with a knot for the very beginning. But you can also do what they call, I forget what they call it now, a lost knot, something like that. Anyway, you can start it that way and then cut it off later, and then you have a tail in the back you can weave in. But I'll take and go into stitching that's already there. And just catch it. A couple of stitches is good. 2 or 3, plenty. It'll keep that from coming, and that thread did not go through. It's all on the back side, just wrapped around the other piece that was already there. Okay, we're going to try this again because I got way too far outside the camera range. So, again, I'm going to start my thread by stitching and wrapping it, just stitching underneath the previous, oops, that didn't help, wrapping under a previous stitch line to just catch it. And that's all I need to do, is just catch it. Okay. Now it's not going anywhere. Okay, and on the top side, we're going to do this split stitch. Doesn't take very long. Just come up from the bottom and push down in the center of the previous stitch. You're just splitting it. Splitting hairs, I guess. And that makes a nice, neat, flat, well, it's not totally flat, but it's a nice, neat stitch that will stay in place. You won't get spots where it's moved. As long as you keep your stitches fairly small, you won't get places that are loose or catch on anything else. Should be good and sturdy and not get rubbed away if it gets a lot of use. These stitches are probably, maybe a little less than 1/8 of an inch, but not as small as a 1/16, except maybe at the end. They're probably, if you look at just the part that shows from the beginning of this one to where the next one goes in, it's probably about 1/8 of an inch. I don't measure. Even when I'm quilting and stuff, I'm not a perfectionist. I don't measure anything. I do what looks good to me, what feels right. So now we're going to go back in with, again, doing a little bit of a fill-in stitch. This is like a satin stitch, but not real close to each other. I'm trying to imitate the veins of the leaves, so I don't want everything as close as, say, the center of that heart. I know you're looking at the heart upside down. It is a heart. So I'm coming up at the center line where my other stitching was, and I'm going down, but I'm kind of pushing it underneath that stem stitch or the split stitch I just did as outlined. I want it to look like it's part of the leaf there and not just a stitch hanging out in the middle of nowhere. Of course, if you want to do something like this, you can do it any way you like. There are no rules in my mind. If something works for you one way but not another, do it the way that works for you. There we go. And to end it, I'm going to do the very same thing. In this case, I can go underneath a bunch of stitching, but if I do that, which is fine, I want to go back down again, through it again, and don't pull it real tight because you don't want to put a kink in it. And then you can just trim off your end. And there you go. So, there's yet another leaf. I have 2 more little ones to do. I'm going to do something different in the larger ones, probably on the line, probably kind of like the heart. The heart is done with just a running stitch, and I would follow along the line that I drew. When I got that outline done, I would lightly in pencil draw another one inside as I got smaller and smaller and smaller. I'm thinking I may do something very similar with these larger leaves. Haven't decided yet. I'll let you know when I get there.